September 25th, 1066. A wooden bridge over the River Derwent in Yorkshire. The morning sun burns off the mist. One man stands alone. Behind him, chaos. Vikings scrambling to form defensive lines, abandoning their celebration, searching frantically for the armor they left at their ships. Before him, the English army. 5,000 soldiers, fresh from an impossible march, burning for vengeance. The bridge is narrow, 3 men wide, maybe, just wooden planks over cold water. He's a giant, this warrior. Sources describe him as towering over other men. Chainmail covers him from shoulders to knees, metal helmet with a nose guard, and in his weathered hands, a Danish battle axe, long-handled, double-bladed, a weapon designed to cleave shields and shatter bone with a single swing. The first English soldier charges. The axe moves, the soldier falls, another comes, he falls too. For the next hour, this nameless Viking will hold this bridge against an entire army. 40 English soldiers will die trying to cross. Their blood will paint the wooden planks red. The River Derwent will run crimson. His comrades will buy precious minutes to form their shield wall. The English will be forced to devise a desperate plan. Send a man beneath the bridge in a barrel, spear in hand, to strike upward through the wooden slats. When he finally falls, legends say the spear thrust caught him in the most vulnerable place imaginable. We don't know his name. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle doesn't record it. Neither do the Viking sagas. He's just one of the Norwegians, a warrior who did what Viking culture demanded, who died the death every Norseman prayed for, who believed his reward would be Valhalla itself. His stand changed nothing for the Vikings. They lost the battle. Harald Hardrada, the last great Viking king, died that day. The Viking Age in England ended at Stamford Bridge. But 3 weeks later, when Harold Godwinson's exhausted army faced William of Normandy at Hastings, they were just weak enough to lose. One man, one bridge, 10 minutes that helped reshape Western civilization. This is his story, and the story of the 3 kings who fought for England in 1066, the year everything changed. 1066 begins with a death. On January 5th, King Edward the Confessor dies without naming a clear successor. Within hours, 3 men claim the throne. Harold Godwinson is crowned first, the most powerful earl in England and brother-in-law to the late king. He's elected by the Witan on January 6th. A seasoned commander and diplomat, Harold has spent years preparing for this moment. England, for now, is his. But across the Channel, William of Normandy is building ships. Edward allegedly promised him the crown long ago. Harold supposedly swore an oath on holy relics to support William's claim. An oath Harold insists was forced, while he was effectively William's hostage. William calls him an oath-breaker, a usurper. The Pope agrees and blesses William's cause. God, it seems, is on Normandy's side. But there is a third claimant, and he's already on the move. Harald Hardrada, King of Norway, age 51. A warrior since 15, when he fought beside his half-brother King Olaf at Stiklestad. After Olaf's death, he fled to Kiev and then to Constantinople, where he spent 15 years in the elite Varangian Guard, fighting across the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and the Balkans, capturing fortresses, surviving coups, and amassing vast wealth. The Byzantines called him the Thunderbolt of the North. He returned to Norway in 1046, claimed the throne, and spent 2 decades at war with Denmark, earning his epithet Hardrada, hard ruler. Now in 1066, he's come for England. His claim rests on an old pact between his predecessor Magnus the Good and King Harthacnut of England, that if either died without an heir, the other would inherit both kingdoms. Legally shaky, but Hardrada has 300 ships and 11,000 warriors. Legal arguments matter little when backed by an army. And he's not coming alone. Harold Godwinson has a brother, Tostig, and Tostig has spent a year burning with fury. In 1065, Tostig was Earl of Northumbria, until his own people rebelled against his harsh rule. He raised taxes, murdered rivals, and ruled brutally. When Northumbria rose in revolt and demanded his removal, Harold faced a terrible choice: support his brother and risk civil war, or support England and exile his own blood. Harold chose England. Tostig called it betrayal. September 20th, 1066. The Norwegian-led army meets English forces at Fulford, just south of York. The northern earls, Edwin of Mercia and Morcar of Northumbria, assemble what troops they can, outnumbered but determined to buy time for King Harold to march north from London. The battle is brutal. The English shield wall holds for hours, but Harold Hardrada is a veteran of decades of warfare. Reading the terrain, he orders a flanking attack through marshy ground the English assumed impassable. Suddenly struck from two sides, their lines collapse. The slaughter is devastating. Edwin and Morcar escape with their lives, but thousands of their men die on the fields outside York. By the next day, the city surrenders without resistance. Hardrada and Tostig enter York in triumph, accepting hostages and tribute. The north has fallen in a single afternoon. The Vikings celebrate, rightly confident. Harold Godwinson is still in the south, watching for William of Normandy. Winter is near. The plan is simple: hold the north through the cold months, then march south in spring. It's a sound strategy. But Hardrada doesn't know Harold Godwinson is already on the move. While the Vikings feast, Harold drives his army north at a pace no medieval force should sustain, 185 miles in 4 days. Housecarls and militia alike march day and night, feet bleeding, men dropping from exhaustion. But they push on because Harold knows the truth. If the Vikings consolidate, they'll be unbeatable by spring. Speed is his only chance. On September 24th, Harold reaches Tadcaster, 8 miles from York. He passes through the city so quickly that the Vikings don't realize he's arrived. The next morning, September 25th, Hardrada receives word that hostages from York, 150 prominent citizens, will be delivered at Stamford Bridge, 7 miles east. It's unseasonably hot. Many Vikings leave their chainmail at the ships in Rickle. Why wear armor just to collect hostages? Hardrada and Tostig march east with perhaps 8,000 men. They expect surrender. They're about to meet Harold Godwinson instead. The Vikings see the dust cloud first. They're spread out on both sides of the River Derwent, some on the west bank, most on the east, waiting for hostages from York. The wooden bridge between them is narrow, wide enough for only 3 men abreast. Then someone notices movement on the western horizon. Not civilians bringing tribute, but steel glinting in the sun. Thousands of spear points. The thunder of marching feet. War cries from an army that has marched 185 miles in 4 days and now wants blood. Harold Godwinson has arrived. Harold Hardrada instantly understands the catastrophe. Half his army is across the river. Most of his warriors are unarmored. They left their gear at the ships 7 miles away. They're scattered, relaxed, completely unprepared. The English crash into the Vikings on the west bank. It isn't a battle, it's a slaughter. The Vikings, caught off guard, retreat towards the bridge, trying to reach their comrades on the east side. Harold orders a shield wall to form on the east bank and sends riders racing to recall to bring reinforcements and armor. If they can hold for an hour or two, the situation might stabilize. But the English are advancing too fast. If they force the bridge now, they'll smash straight into Harold's disorganized main force. Someone has to hold the bridge. One man steps forward. We don't know why. Maybe he was Harold's sworn retainer, bound by honor. Maybe a berserker, fueled by sacred fury. Maybe simply a veteran who understood what had to be done. Sources call him one of the Norwegians. A giant of a man, one of the few still wearing full chainmail. In his hands is a Danish battle axe, long, heavy, capable of cleaving shields and bones alike. He walks onto the bridge and plants his feet. The first English soldier charges. The axe swings in a brutal horizontal arc, crushing through chainmail and bone. The body falls into the river. Another comes, another falls. 2 more attack together. He parries a spear with the axe haft, buries the blade in the second man's shoulder, then cuts the first across the neck. More come. For nearly 40 minutes, some accounts say close to an hour, this one man holds the bridge alone. English commanders send soldiers in 2s and 3s. Archers fire, but arrows bounce off his armor or miss. Spearmen try coordinated thrusts. Nothing works. He fights like the berserkers of legend, ignoring wounds, shrugging off spear thrusts, moving with terrifying precision. Bodies pile around him. 10 dead, 20, 30. By the time 40 Englishmen have fallen, their commanders are desperate. They need a new plan. Someone has an idea. Maybe it's a commander. Maybe it's a common soldier who sees the opportunity. We'll never know. But someone looks at that bridge and realizes, you can't beat this warrior from above. He's too skilled, too strong, too armored. Every attack from the front is suicide. But what about from below? The River Derwent isn't deep, the bridge is low. If someone could get underneath it, the chronicles disagree on the details. The Anglo-Saxon chronicle says a soldier got into a barrel. Other sources mention a small boat, a coracle, the kind of round leather and wicker craft that fishermen used on English rivers. Either way, the principle is the same. One English soldier volunteers. Or maybe he's ordered. But he climbs into his vessel, pushes off from the bank, and floats quietly downstream toward the bridge. Above him, the battle continues. The sound of metal on metal, the war cries, the thud of the axe striking shields and flesh. The warrior is still fighting, still killing any Englishman who sets foot on the bridge. The soldier in the water drifts closer. The current takes him under the bridge. Now he's in shadow, hidden from view. He looks up. Through the gaps in the wooden planks, he can see movement. Footsteps. The warrior shifting his stance as he faces another attacker. The wood is old, weathered. There are cracks between the boards. The soldier grips his spear, chooses his moment, and thrusts upward. The Anglo-Saxon chronicle is brutally specific about where the spear struck. Right into his private parts. The most vulnerable place on any man's body, even one wearing chainmail. The place no armor adequately protects. The warrior on the bridge staggers. He's been wounded before, dozens of times in the past hour. But this is different. This wound is mortal. He knows it immediately. He tries to keep fighting, falls to one knee. The axe wavers. An English soldier sees the opening, rushes forward and finishes him. The giant warrior collapses. His blood runs through the cracks in the bridge, dripping down to mix with the river water below. The English army surges forward across the bridge. Behind the fallen warrior, the Vikings have formed their shield wall. The warrior bought them 10 minutes, maybe 15. It's not enough. They're still outnumbered, still mostly unarmored, still caught off guard. But it's something. The last great Viking invasion of England is about to meet its end. But the warrior on the bridge has already earned his place in legend. 40 English soldiers dead. 1 hour of defiance. The kind of death every Viking hopes for, dreamed of. Valhalla's gates, he believed, were opening for him. The battle spreads across the fields east of Stamford Bridge. The Vikings fight with the desperation of men who know they're dying. The English fight with the fury of men who marched 185 miles in 4 days and watched 40 of their brothers fall to one warrior. Before the fighting, there was a parley, one of those strange medieval pauses where enemies speak before killing each other. Harold Godwinson sent 20 housecarls forward under a flag of truce to meet Harold Hardrada and Tostig. The message was for Tostig. Abandon Hardrada and Harold would restore his earldom. 1/3 of England returned, all forgiven. Tostig asked what Hardrada would receive if he accepted. The reply, possibly spoken by Harold himself in disguise, was 7 feet of English ground, as he is taller than other men. A grave. Nothing more. Tostig refused at once. It will never be said that I brought the King of Norway to England only to betray him. The messengers withdrew. Hardrada, impressed by Harold's boldness, asked who had delivered the offer. Learning it was Harold himself, he realized how close he'd stood to death, spared only by his enemy's honor. Now honor is gone, only steel remains. Hardrada fights with the fury of a veteran of the Byzantine Varangian Guard, but he is 51, unarmored, and facing an army nearly twice his size. An arrow strikes his throat. He falls, and his great banner, Land Ravager, drops beside him. Tostig seizes the banner, takes command, and fights on, but not for long. Within the hour, he too is dead. The brother who chose vengeance over peace, who invaded his own homeland, rejecting Harold's final olive branch. The Vikings continue fighting for hours. They are warriors. They know how to die. But without armor, without their king, and without hope of reinforcements, they are doomed. Eystein Ore eventually arrives from Rikal with the reserves and armor, but his men are exhausted from the 7-mile sprint. They charge barely able to breathe. Most die within minutes. By sunset, it's over. The Battle of Stamford Bridge is a crushing English victory. Hardrada is dead. Tostig is dead. Of the 11,000 Vikings who came to England, only enough survived to crew 24 ships. 300 arrived, 24 return. The Viking Age in England, which began in the late 8th century and once put Danish kings on the English throne, ends on a Yorkshire field. Harold Godwinson has saved England. His army celebrates, exhausted, bloodied, victorious. 3 days later, William of Normandy lands at Pevensey. Harold's true nightmare begins. Harold Godwinson has won at Stamford Bridge, but victory cost him everything he needed to stop William. His army is exhausted. They marched 185 miles north in 4 days and fought the bloodiest battle of Harold's reign. Northern allies, Earls Edwin and Morcar, lost most of their forces at Fulford. The militia needs time to recover, regroup, and gather reinforcements. Harold doesn't have that time. William landed on September 28th, just 3 days after Stamford Bridge. He fortifies his beachhead at Pevensey, raids the countryside, and burns Harold's estates in Sussex. It's deliberate. William knows Harold must respond. Harold does exactly what William expects. On September 29th, he marches south again with the surviving housecarls. Another forced march, another 240 miles. His soldiers are walking corpses, driven only by loyalty and sheer will. They reach London on October 6th. Harold has marched over 400 miles in less than 3 weeks, fought his greatest battle, and now faces another. Advisors urge caution, rest, heal, gather reinforcements. Harold refuses. William is burning his lands, terrorizing his people, and fortifying his position. He must strike now. On October 14th, Harold meets William at Senlac Hill near Hastings. The English shield wall holds for hours, but exhaustion and depleted ranks tell. Late in the day, a Norman-feigned retreat breaks the lines. Cavalry pours through. Harold dies. How exactly is disputed, but dead he is. His brothers Gurth and Leofwine fall beside him. The English army collapses. William of Normandy has conquered England. And somewhere in that chain of events, between September 25th and October 14th, there was a bridge in Yorkshire, and a warrior, nameless, who held it for 10 minutes. 10 minutes that helped shape everything. The warrior on the bridge enters history as a question mark. We don't know his name. We don't know where he was from. Norway? Denmark? One of the Norse settlements in Scotland or Ireland? We don't know if he had family waiting for him somewhere, if he had children who grew up wondering what happened to their father, if he had a wife who waited for a husband who would never return. All we know is what he did, and what people wrote about it. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, compiled within living memory of the events, records his stand. Snorri Sturluson's Heimskringla, written in Iceland in the 13th century, preserves the Viking perspective. Both traditions, English and Norse, remember him. Both honor him in their way. For the English, he represents an obstacle overcome, proof of their ingenuity, their determination. They faced an impossible situation, a warrior they couldn't defeat in single combat, and found another way. The soldier who floated beneath the bridge and struck from below becomes a clever hero in English tradition. For the Norse, the bridge warrior embodies everything their culture valued: courage, skill in arms, the willingness to face impossible odds, a good death in battle, weapon in hand, buying time for his brothers. This is what Valhalla was for. This is what every Viking warrior dreamed of becoming. Both cultures remember him. Neither records his name. Maybe that's fitting. Maybe the namelessness is the point. He wasn't fighting for personal glory or individual fame. He was fighting because his culture demanded it, because his king needed it, because his brothers behind him needed those precious minutes to form their lines. The warrior becomes universal. He's every Viking who ever faced impossible odds and chose to fight anyway. Every soldier who ever volunteered for the suicide mission. Every person who ever stood alone against overwhelming force because someone had to. Historians debate the details. Was it really 40 soldiers he killed? Contemporary sources are rarely precise with numbers. Was he truly alone, or did others briefly join him before falling? The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle is clear that one man held the bridge, but legends grow in the telling. Does it matter? The core truth remains. At a critical moment, when two armies clashed over control of England, when the future of the island hung in the balance, one warrior made a stand that bought time. Maybe not enough time to change the battle's outcome. The Vikings lost decisively, but enough time to matter. Because 3 weeks later, when Harold Godwinson's exhausted army faced William at Hastings, they were just weak enough to lose. Would a few hundred more fresh troops have made the difference? Would better rested soldiers have held their shield wall when the Normans feigned retreat? We'll never know. What we know is this: 1066 ended with a Norman king on England's throne. The English language absorbed thousands of French words. English culture, English law, English architecture, everything changed. And in that web of cause and effect somewhere, there's a bridge in Yorkshire, and a warrior whose name we'll never know, whose 10 minutes of courage echo through 9 centuries. Today, Stamford Bridge is a quiet village in East Yorkshire, 7 miles east of York. About 3,500 people live there now. There's a memorial stone erected in 1951. A metal sculpture of a Viking warrior, axe raised, stands near where the old bridge might have been. The river still flows. The land is peaceful now. Tourists visit occasionally, mostly people interested in military history, Vikings, or the events of 1066. Most visitors spend more time at Hastings, where the famous battle happened, where the Bayeux Tapestry immortalized William's victory. Stamford Bridge, despite being one of the largest and bloodiest battles fought on English soil, remains overshadowed. The forgotten Battle of 1066. But the warrior on the bridge hasn't been forgotten. Every historian who writes about that year, every book about Harold Godwinson or Harold Hardrada, every documentary about the Norman conquest, they all mention him, the nameless Viking who held the bridge. His stand represents something we still recognize today: the moment when one person, facing impossible odds, chooses courage over survival. When someone decides that buying time for others, even at the cost of their own life, is worth it. Was he a hero? The English soldiers he killed probably didn't think so. Their families didn't see heroism. They saw the man who killed their sons, their brothers, their fathers. Was his sacrifice meaningful? The Vikings lost. Harold Hardrada died. The invasion failed. The warrior bought 10 minutes for a shield wall that couldn't hold, for a battle that couldn't be won. But meaning isn't always measured in victory. Sometimes it's measured in courage itself, in the willingness to stand when standing seems pointless, in the decision to fight when fighting seems futile. September 25th, 1066. One man, one bridge, one axe against an army. The river still remembers. History still records it. We still tell the story. That's immortality enough.